One of the things that I find from audiences who ask me questions about population is that they have no faith in the way the world works. First of all, they don't know how the world works, but they don't have the same faith that I have in the way that it works. The living community on this planet works and has worked for something like 3 billion years. The principle, that one of the fundamental principle by which it works is really astonishingly simple. Populations balance each other because they are balances of food and feeders. To be very simple about it, when a given population in a given community grows a little large, it eats up its food supply, which means that its food diminishes, which means that it then diminishes. It goes down, the feeder population goes down, and as the feeder population goes down, its food population comes back up. And as its population comes back up, the feeder population comes up as well. And as the feeder population comes up, the food population goes down again. And so you have a perpetual balancing of populations. As one goes up, the other goes down. As it goes down, the other one follows it down, and then the other comes up, and this one follows it up, and so on. And everything stays in balance this way. And the reason that I drag God into this statement is, in part, that because the system is self-regulating, it isn't necessary for God to leap in and say, oh my God, this population over here is going down. I've got to send in more food. It is not necessary to do that because the system is self-regulating. When I wrote Ishmael, I knew this. I knew that this is because I'd studied a little bit of ecology, and this is practically the ABCs of ecology. And so I knew that this was how it worked. And I thought it would be quite easy to make this point in Ishmael, and never guessed how very inflammatory this would prove to be and how difficult it would be. Far and away, the most inflammatory topic in any of my books is this one. And it is partly because there is no, or very little, or very rarely, understanding of how the system works, and that it does work infallibly. It always works. It has always worked. It has worked for 3 billion years. In the case of the human population, our particular cultural group, has found a way to defeat the negative feedback system that was in place on this planet, so that instead of the human population, when it gets too big, its food supply begins to dwindle, we simply grow more, which means that our population can grow more. And instead of saying, oh, well, we now have to diminish, have to go down because our food population has diminished, we say, oh no, we'll just grow more food. And so we just go more food, more people, more food, more people, more food, more people, more food, more people, indefinitely. which is how we got to this point that we are at right now. People have no faith, or very little faith. The people who have difficulty with this concept have no faith in the idea that if we did not continue to chase population with food production, that there would not be massive famine. They're sure that if we ever said, okay, we're not going to continue this race anymore between food and population. Instead, we're going to drop out of this race. We're not going to continue this race anymore. For some reason, people imagine that this would spell catastrophe for the human race. They know it doesn't spell catastrophe for any other species. Every other species is controlled by its food supply, and it isn't a catastrophe for them. But people are convinced, many people are convinced, that it does spell catastrophe for us.